Storm Dragon versus Scorched Dragon, first half. The aftermath of that battle left a deep scar on the world. The surrounding landscape was reshaped, and the local ecosystem thrown into chaos. What followed was later dubbed a calamity, an event recorded in history as the Scorching Tempest. Regardless of how it ended, the battle itself was clearly beyond anything humanity could comprehend. The only saving grace, it had taken place over the ocean. The intense heat had caused vast quantities of seawater to evaporate, forming dense storm clouds that drenched nearby coastal regions with heavy rainfall. But at least the land remained mostly unharmed. Had that clash taken place over land, or worse, near any population centers, the resulting devastation would have been unimaginable. Even so, damage had been done. The marine ecosystem in that region was drastically altered. Already massive sea creatures were exposed to intense magical energy and began evolving into terrifying new forms. True sea monsters. That stretch of ocean became completely impassable. Maritime routes were cut off, and even the skies above were deemed hazardous for flight. Such was the legacy of the scorching tempest, a calamity that changed global transportation and strategy. Meanwhile, far to the north, among the central islands of the continent of eternal ice, lay a sea perpetually trapped in permafrost. The skies above were ruled by airborne demons, now even more aggressive after being saturated with Demon Lord Guy Crimson's powerful magic. Between that and the ruined sea routes, efforts to establish a land based railway system and a transit gate network gained urgent momentum. This led to speculation. Was this part of Demon Lord Rimurus' master plan all along? After all, he'd previously shown a strong desire to expand his rail network. Some even whispered that the entire incident was orchestrated to monopolize land transport routes. Of course, there was no solid proof, but it remained a hotly debated theory among future historians. What they did agree on was this: the calamity had ended up accelerating human technological development, especially in the field of transportation. In truth, the entire sequence of events was a bizarre twist of fate, something no one, not even the most imaginative storyteller, could have foreseen. Reality is often stranger than fiction, had never felt more appropriate. Whatever the debates to come, one fact was universally accepted. This so called calamity had been the result of a clash between true dragons. Meanwhile, Veldora soared freely through the skies, feeling unburdened and invigorated. He pushed himself just a bit faster, testing his limits. Compared to when he had been sealed away, his control over his magic had improved dramatically, and his flight speed had increased accordingly. Huahaha! Magnificent! What an accelerating speed! He shouted to no one in particular, grinning wide as the wind roared past. Thanks to the knowledge he'd absorbed from Rimurus' sacred texts, also known as manga, Veldora had refined his internal magic flow, optimizing it for high efficiency output. His magic now circulated perfectly with zero leakage. Every particle of energy was high quality and under his control. Less effort, better result. Living alongside Rimuru had opened his eyes to many new things. During this time, confined to a human form, he wasn't allowed to rampage freely. Instead, he sparred with Rimuru's subordinates, learning from them. One of the most valuable lessons came from none other than Old Man Hakuro. Don't just unleash power, mold it, concentrate it, release it precisely and explosively. Power wasn't just about quantity, it was about control. The essence of Veldora's power was chaos, an overwhelming force that surged outward and overwhelmed everything indiscriminately. It was already enough to destroy nearly anything in its path, but raw force had its limits. To do more, especially under constraints, one had to wield power efficiently. That's why suppressing his power and training in a human form had been such effective practice. In that time, Veldora learned how to treat his energy like a limb, to guide it, refine it, and release it with precision. The more he focused, the more fluid his dragon form control became. This new understanding made a major difference. While he still had the most total energy among the four true dragons, he now knew how to actually use it. it properly. Playing around in a human body had taught him how to fight smarter, and without even realizing it, Veldora had become exponentially stronger than his past self. To him, it just felt like his body had become lighter. Now, focused and determined, he gathered his power and pushed forward at full speed. His form naturally adjusted for flight, and in an instant, he surpassed the speed of sound. Until now, the fastest of the four true dragons had always been Velgrind, the Scorched Dragon. But at this moment, Veldora's speed matched hers. Unaware of how close he had come to the Imperial fleet, he continued to accelerate. Just then, a telepathic message reached him. Rimuru's voice tinged with panic. Hey, Veldora. The Emperor's right in front of you. If you don't slow down, you're going to crash straight into them. Only an hour remained before impact. The sudden message snapped Veldora's thoughts into sharp focus. Wait, the Empire was en route to Rumina's domain, right? Wasn't this a perfect chance for him to show off? He just unlocked a new level of power. Wasn't this the ideal opportunity to test it out? And if he happened to defeat the entire enemy force on his own before Ruminus even got involved, well, what harm could that do? Quahahaha, no worries, Rimuru. Leave this to me. I'll crush that Imperial army. What? Are you sure that's a good idea? Of course. This is the perfect moment for me to go all out. Just sit back and watch. And with that, he cut the telepathic link to Bildora. Rimuru was always too careful. He never acted without first eliminating all risks, which was fine, of course, but sometimes you had to trust your power. You had to be bold, just like the ultimate skill Raphael, resolved and ready. Vildora surged forward. The battle was now inevitable. To Vildora, the Imperial troops were no threat. Determined to end the battle in an instant, he increased his flight speed even further. Ahead, the Empire's aerial legion came into view. 300 airships, not much of a problem. With his current speed, it felt like he could just crash straight into the fleet cloaked in hyper energy and win effortlessly. But perhaps it was better to give them a chance to surrender first, so he stopped just before contact. A shockwave from his sudden stop rocked the front of the fleet, jolting the airships violently. Destroying them seemed like it would be too easy. Fools of the Empire. I am Veldora, Storm Dragon Veldora, he proclaimed loudly through telepathy, addressing the Empire. If you cease your invasion now, I will allow you to retreat in peace. You may respond now. This act of warning was something Veldora never would have considered in the past. Living alongside Rimuru had not only increased his power but had also influenced the way he thought. Well, the knowledge from the scriptures, manga, probably had a lot to do with it. However, the situation for the Empire was much different. The higher ranking officers were already informed that the entire army sent to subjugate the Great Gila Forest had been wiped out. The regular soldiers, seeing Vildora, who should not have been there, were uneasy and restless. Yet, none of them abandoned their posts. They set their defense barriers to maximum output and awaited further orders with impressive discipline. The officers, however, were more focused. The Beast Corps Commander, Gradin, and Major General Samdi were aboard the central airship, which stood out as more luxurious than the rest of the fleet. This ship carried 300 elite mages, which meant its defense barriers were top notch. It was no surprise, it was the flagship of the expeditionary forces. On board was also Velgrind, the Scorched Dragon. As a proxy for the Emperor, she held the highest position of authority. To Gradin, who had no idea who she was, it wasn't an ideal situation, but even he could sense that she was no one to underestimate. Samdi spoke up in place of Gradin. The woman who called herself Velgrind, was now the highest authority on the ship. While it wasn't entirely pleasant, it was necessary to consult her. Grindono. What should our course of action be? Velgrin smiled wryly, then responded with a question of her own. Shamdi, do we have the magic consoler ready to fire? And how much resistance do you think our forces can put up with the troops we currently have? Shamdi thought for a moment before answering. Let's see, we didn't expect an air battle. We don't have enough mages for this. Our opponent is Veldora, so our forces won't be enough. We could do better with, say, 100 ships and 400 elite mages each. Velgrin frowned, her thoughts clear. Transport ships won't do much against Veldora, all right. I'll go ahead. You all should withdraw from the battle zone immediately. What? You're going alone? Gradim was shocked by Belgrin's words. She glanced back at him in unflinching. Yes, it's fortunate I came with the expedition. Even Rudlow couldn't have foreseen this turn of events. She turned toward the door, her voice growing more urgent. Gather those who can use magic counselors and reform our formation. Do it swiftly while I buy time. Be ready to fire the moment I create an opening, and make sure to contact Rudra. Understood? Now, hurry up. Her orders came like a volley of arrows, and Gradim was left stunned, unable to process it all. Belgrind paid him no mind as she opened the bridge doors and flew out into the skies. That's suicide, Radim thought, but before he could speak, the sight before him left him speechless. Grinned, soared into the sky, and in a flash of red light, transformed into her dragon mode. The display of her cardinal aura was nothing short of dazzling. Wah, could it be? Cardinal. Velgrind, the guardian deity of the empire. Velgrind Sama. Gradim snapped back to his senses at Samdi's surprised exclamation. Without wasting any time, he gave his orders. I'll contact the Emperor. Everyone, reform ranks. You heard Velgrin-sama. Assemble the mages and land the remaining ships in the ocean. His voice cut through the shock of the moment, and the soldiers quickly snapped to attention. Their hearts were momentarily stolen by the awe-inspiring sight of the scarlet dragon in the sky, the legendary guardian of the empire taking flight. But Gradim's stern commands brought them back to focus. That's right, our guardian dragon is with us. There's nothing to fear. With Velgrin Sama on our side, we can't lose. Morale surged among the Empire's soldiers as they swiftly began moving into position, following orders with renewed confidence. Vilgrind, now fully in her true form, looked around, preparing herself for the battle ahead. As expected, it felt comforting for Vilgrind to be in her original form once again, using magic perception as naturally as breathing. She analyzed the movements within the fleet. There was no hesitation among the soldiers. There was no issue there. As she looked ahead, she noticed Vildora seemed to be taken aback and had become stiff. And yeah, no surprise there. The reason was clear. Vildora probably thought he could obliterate the fleet with a single blast of his breath. It had been an age since they last met, a reunion of siblings long overdue. Before he was sealed away during his rampaging days, Veldwind had already been Emperor Rudra's partner and had been lying dormant within the Empire. The last time Veldora and Veldwind had met was over 2,000 years ago. They encountered each other in the southern region of the Empire, where their powers clashed, creating the volcanic region they left behind. At the time, neither of them had been fighting seriously, but Veldora had caught a glimpse of Vilgrin's true power and had fled in defeat, his pride wounded. Despite his vast amounts of energy, Veldora couldn't efficiently control his power. Velgrind, on the other hand, didn't see him as much of a threat. Energy alone wasn't enough if it couldn't be properly used. But if Veldora could learn to harness his immense power, it could rival even Velgrin's. She intended to take her time teaching him once she managed to bring him over to their side. Now, everything had aligned. Velgrin's plan was simple. 1. Pin Veldora down. 2. Wait for the right opportunity to use the magic counselors to restrain him. 3. Use Emperor Rudra's Regalia Dominion to bring Veldora under their control. It would have been difficult to lure him away from Demon Lord Rimuru, but now the situation had changed. This unexpected opportunity had become the perfect chance to turn Veldora to their side. With Veldora under their control, they wouldn't need the soul-rending system to defeat Ruminas or bring up Holy Knights, and in their game against Guy Veldora's power would be a decisive advantage, eliminating the need to increase the number of sages under their command. With this, the board is about to change drastically. The end of their long and drawn out game felt close. Victory for Velgrind and Emperor Rudra was within reach. But for now, the priority was capturing Veldora. With this rare opportunity, securing his capture was vital to making their victory a reality. As Velgrin slowly flew toward Veldora, her thoughts were clear and focused. Meanwhile, Veldora was perplexed. Despite having successfully run from his elder sister Velzard, he now found himself face to face with his other elder sister. What's up with that? He thought in confusion. The shock of the situation made his movements stiff and hesitant. It was time to get serious. Escape would be difficult. The reason was simple. Valgrind was the fastest among the true dragons. With her polished battle style, it was clear she could outplace him. Well, appearances didn't matter much in this case. Competing in speed was pointless. The current location was ideal for a fight. Veldora didn't want to destroy Rumina's country again. If he did, he knew he'd be relentlessly pursued until his last breath. Ruminas wouldn't hesitate to take action after seeing what Rimuru had done to build his country. It was clear she would be furious if her country were destroyed again. Even if Ruminas didn't act, if Tempest were destroyed, Rimuru would certainly make the culprit pay. So there was no need to relocate the battlefield to a populated area. Although a bit of a hassle, it seemed the opposition was also preparing for battle. Well then, he'd face them head on. But there was one thing that had caught him off guard. Velgrin's alliance with the Empire. Veldora had thought that he could easily wipe out this fleet of airships with a single blast of breath. He had even hoped to earn Romina's favor in the process, hoping she would forgive the destruction of her country. It was a perfect opportunity, but life was never that simple. Oh well, since Vilgrind was so eager to engage, he would follow her lead. Though they had never truly fought seriously before, Veldora knew that Vilgrind likely had the upper hand back then. But that was in the past. Now, Veldora had gained new powers thanks to Rimuru. Kwahahaha. How about I see what I'm truly capable of against my elder sister? With that thought, Veldora became even more motivated. He focused on Velgrind taking his battle stance. And so, the battle between the true dragons began, one for the history books. End of chapter 171.